I want to talk a little bit about the season that we are in relation to the divine feminine. So, Shaman at the end of October was the beginning of an opening into the darker part of the year, and at that time there is a shift in veneration of the mother archetype and the bounty of harvest, and that seasonal shift into longer nights, colder weather, and of course the old traditions around guiding spirits and those who have crossed to the other side over, which lends itself to the quality of the hag or the old woman. And this cycle continues to evolve into the solstice portal, 21st of December, this 2020 passed, and then we are really beginning our initiatory process, moving into the underworld and diving deep into the feminine mysteries and embarking on our shadow work and our clearing, which happens before and during the turn into the new year. So going with the Gregorian calendar, and on the 31st of December into the 1st of January. But I mentioned this a few days ago, that in the old Celtic tradition, the calendar for the new year falls in the middle of January, and in fact there are multiple feast days and days of celebration over the January-February period, from Christmas really onwards, that are all in celebration of the Crone archetype, the feminine wisdom, the mysteries of winter, and it's a time of gathering round the fire or round the spinning wheel and crafting and creating and dreaming into these darker spaces and planting seeds of intention, imagining possibilities for the year ahead. And part of that imagining is really about casting forward or using that inner sight to scry, to look into the flame, to read the frost and the patterns of shifts in the weather, to connect more deeply with primal animal instinctual behaviour as we move into a degree of protectionism and holding to keep us warm, to nourish us, and to move into more of a reflective space. So it's a really interesting, potent period where lots of ancestral bondage and trauma can come up that wants to be released, which is always triggered by being, in close proximity to our families and our clans as we gather to feast and to celebrate and to share gifts and share stories. And this, the transition from 2020 into 21, I've been preparing for quite some time. I would say before October I was feeling that shift, and there was still cycles of eclipse to move through as well with different lunations, and it felt like the lunations that were closing the last few months of 2020 were incredibly cumulative, that they were all puzzle pieces of a larger story or narrative unfolding, and that the energy of 2021 is still very much settling and bedding in, and January is a really tricky month for a lot of people in just making that shift over. We've kind of let go of the energy of the whole of the previous year, and this is usually a time where we actually stop, and there's a culmination of all of the things that we've been putting off, dealing with, or not had enough energy to process, and that all kind of comes to a head quite often in early January. Then we can sort of have a dip in energy and feel a little bit low in mood and find ourselves in the January blues. So part of my feeling into that exact dynamic over the last few days has been very much connected to my shifting perception and awareness around the Crone archetype and her importance at this time as a representative, as a source of wisdom and healing, and a figurehead that we can look to within our communities, but within our spiritual practice, within our reference to ancestral lineage, with a particular quality of space holding that is really appropriate for this time of year. It's about coming under the cloak, coming into a space of protection and self-inquiry, and that under the blanket or the plaid of, say, the old woman archetype within the Celtic mythos, that is a shield from the elements. It is like the ger or the yurt. It becomes a covering and a tent, a home for you to come under the skirt and shelter for a while and connect with her flame. So when we talk about the archetypes of Maiden Mother Crone, despite that we may be focusing on one area with emphasis, I would feel that it's correct to say that there will still be glimpses of the shift and transition between those three qualities. So many triple goddesses that are celebrated all have these cyclical shifts into spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And not only do they represent the very literal climactic and environmental seasonal shifts that are going on, and the qualities and temperaments of those periods of time, but also a maturity and an evolution in consciousness, that the time for sowing seeds and for quiet reflection, setting intentions and goals, and clearing and preparing for new growth, and making space so that there is room for new ideas to sprout. That's very much the time that we're in right now. And then that shifts forward to the spring equinox and moving into the warmer qualities of fire, which is a precursor to the summer Beltane and all of those celebrations that are marked in the calendar in different ways through many different traditions, and many of those are still present in our day-to-day cultural gatherings and holidays that the calendar still holds. But it was the reflection of this time of year and this quality of the crone that I really was feeling into and sensing that there's something missing in our sharing space. There's a lack of acknowledgement and giving thanks to that divine feminine wisdom, which is, of course, intangible in many ways. It is all pervasive and permeates all space, that which we can see and especially that which we cannot see. And for that reason, the capacity that we have to tap into that and feel into that as a space of inspiration and creativity and healing is something that has been battled with in our recent and lengthy history, in terms of the place and the space that women have within society, and how their voices are platformed and heralded, and also how their voices are often suppressed or dismissed as that the space of going into effectively internal reflection and meditation as a divination tool to assist with not just esoteric and philosophical inquiry, but really basic day-to-day living and relationship to the land, relationship to plants and animals, and drawing out healing modalities from a dialogue with the crone spirit, the wise woman, there is still a huge amount of fear and uncertainty within a collectively held consciousness, and I don't want to suggest that it is gender specific. It's just happens to be a consciousness that is still present and dominant enough in the narrative for it still to be a very loud voice, which is coming from a place of fear and anxiety, distrust of, where does this information come from? How does it come to be? And why should it be looked to as something that should be upheld and given place to, given power to? And out of that fear, ignorance is birthed, and intolerance, which does lead to a breakdown of trust and communication between those who are trying to hold a space for that frequency and that quality of life, shall we say. And I suppose rather than feeling further into the problems and challenges and analysing the symptoms of that and how it manifests, I would like to put my energy and focus into thinking about how we can bring back some sacred acknowledgement and appreciation for and trust in this divine feminine wisdom. And I cannot look at someone who is in that state of fear, who is not willing to see, feel, hear, know, or understand, if they don't want to. But I can hold a space that is available for someone to come and visit if they wish. So I feel like holding that quality of permanence is somewhat evocative of the idea of a temple or a sacred site. And like any sacred space, it needs to be cared for, kept clean and tidy. It needs to be available at any time for anyone who chooses to visit. If they are holding a genuine intention of curiosity and openness to receive the gifts that the space has to offer. So it then becomes a question of responsibility to that space if we are to be a vessel and a representative or a spokesperson for a form of healing and a form of something which is a chalice well for wisdom, then we need to set clear boundaries about how we intend for that space to be used. And to make a very stark example of that, there is a sense of decorum or formality that everyone seems to adhere to when entering a church or a chapel, regardless of your background, your perspective or denomination, with innocent intent, which I think is possibly the key here, innocent intent, with no malice or will to do harm. You can enter a space like that and be from anywhere, and offer the space the respect it deserves, in the sense that someone has created that and built that with an intention for it to be a safe house, for it to be a place of meditation, a place of worship. And I think that the temple body is no different. If we are making ourselves available and in true shamanic essence, really creating a hollow bone and a conductor for information to be able to flow freely through, then we need to be really clear about what is acceptable in our space and what is not. And I feel that this period of the winter months is very much about taking inventory, taking stock. You're kind of watching the proverbial cupboards and all your stores of things that you've gathered during harvest and what you've made, what you've learned about the year. And I'm using produce as an example of that because it's a very literal physical thing that we're tapping into for nourishment. But equally, if you're working with the seasons and making herbal medicines or preparations and saving them for such a time as you might need them, it's all knowledge that you are bottling, jarring, storing, and that kind of symbolism can really be applied to all areas of life. So now is the time to really categorize, like, what do I take forward with me into the new year, and what do I leave behind? And the new year unfolding, although it feels to be often quite abrupt, is we're still in the depths of winter, really. January, February, at least in the northern hemisphere here. So that is a time also to think about the body temple as the sacred space, and what do we leave behind? What do we bring with us? And for those who are visiting us and wish to engage with us in a way that there will be an asking, a request of energy transmission, a request for some support, some healing in some way. What will we accept and what will we absolutely not accept? What are we tolerant of? Where do we draw the line? What is our ultimatum and where is our boundary? We need to get really clear on that. And this is fitting in respect of the Crone archetype, because the qualities that she holds in terms of what she can tap into, she has seen it all. She has been there, she has done that, she has been through multiple cycles of life, death, and rebirth. She has likely experienced death firsthand. She has likely experienced multiple traumas firsthand. She will have been gritty. She will have had her hands covered in blood and in shit and in guts, and seen all of the facets that life has to offer with no filter. So by that merit, one could argue that there is a lot of room for understanding and a lot of room for tolerance, acceptance of differing beliefs and perspectives and life experiences which inform choices that people make. But equally, there is an impatience in that energy, a cantankerousness, a quality of, I've seen so much and I've been there, that I don't have to put up with behaviour that is conflicting with my ethics or morals. And that is really important and a kind of crux of her energy, is this balance between, yes, the mother, the all-mother aspect, she's so old, she's everyone's mother. She has that inherent quality of just exuding nurture and exuding that caregiving, because she's fully embodied and fully rooted into the earth and fully embracing of her role in the cosmological framework of understanding, which is that we too have an all-mother, and it is the sacred body of the earth that we are living on. And she is a kind of living, the crone is a living vessel and physical representation, in female form of the earth's body, and really just by being there and existing and being vocal and sharing stories and sharing wisdom and dreaming into the unknown and pulling dreams from the sky and spinning at the web, is she reminding us of the earth's physicality and her consciousness and her tangibility as a living, breathing entity, shall we say. And we've kind of lost touch with her a bit. There's still some battle going on for dominance and for assertion, and in that competition we actually lose a perspective on how small we are in the scale of life. And I feel like the crone will always manage to successfully make us feel humble. She will always bring us back down to earth and keeps it real and calls us out for things that are out of line, and reminds us, like, this is who you're talking to, this is who you're dealing with. It's the ancient primordial mother, the ancient primordial wisdom. And yeah, as time goes on and as we all age, yes, I think we do go into cycles of dialogue with these archetypes on an internal level too. And then, of course, if you do have your own children or family, and even just being in spaces with other people who are shifting and transforming and changing as they bring children into the world and pass down their knowledge and wisdom, it's like we're all heading towards the crone or the old man at some point. So we want to be in a space at a point where we're at that stage in our life where we still have a platform to share and to speak and to be acknowledged and heard and listened to, and that life doesn't end at 30, So my wish is really that when you feel that energy of the crone bubbling up inside of you, that's kind of maybe cantankerous, maybe grumpy, maybe wanting to give advice, check in with the intention. Is the intention pure? Is the intention loving? Is it in highest good? Does it need to fill the space? If the answer is yes, embrace this growl or this voice, because it is information that wants to come through and is very much connected to the ancestral lineage and this kind of support that's behind and nudging you forward and saying, come on, like, go forward, do it, approach with caution or go full force. The appropriate advice will make itself known to you, and it might take you by surprise. This ancient quality of sound coming out of you that makes you kind of stop for a minute and think, am I turning into my parents, or am I turning into an old person? Embrace that wisdom, embrace that ability to feel into spaces and just feel into the vibration and draw that information through you. Yeah, blessed be.